Hi, my name is Nicole and thank you so much for flowing with me today. Today I'm going to take you through a series of movements designed to embody life and the dance that life can be. So today's focus is really fluid dancing, like movements, really listening to our bodies and, just flowing with what is. So if at any time during this practice you need to take a child's pose or rest, please listen to your body, please feel free. Some tools that may be helpful for today's practice: a strap, if you happen to have one, or belt also works. Some yoga blocks, whatever kind of yoga blocks you have. If you don't have yoga blocks, maybe something like a big book, if you have a big book, or something that kind of resembles a size like this to give you a little bit more support in some poses. In terms of today's practice, our peak pose is going to be our dancer pose, and the movements around it are going to be very fluid and dancer-like to, again, mirror that theme and idea that life is like a dance that we should try to flow with, move with, rather than move against. So we will get started here. We're going to be flowing for about 30 minutes, starting on the hands and knees, coming into our tabletop pose to start. Dropping the belly, lifting the gaze, big breath in, exhaling to round and contract, making sure those hands are spread nice and wide, pressing into the tops of the feet, and taking it back, dropping that belly, lifting that gaze again, and exhale once more, round and contract. Very good. Again, try to make this like a fluid movement, so if you'd like to add anything here, maybe do some circles going around the mat. Maybe you kind of rock back and forth a little, whatever feels good, whatever feels fun. Please feel free to explore that. All right, coming back to our neutral tabletop position, we're going to take a bit of a balancing act here. So if you feel so inclined, you can do the full balancing table, or you can do balancing table with one leg out. So first, balancing table with one leg out. Right leg is going to step back, first and foremost, so toes are towards the bottom of the mat. And then when you inhale, you lift, trying to keep that leg in line with that hip, okay? So you can stay here. You can stay here if you'd like. Or you can keep the balance on the right hand, really engage in that core, looking down towards the bottom of the mat. Left hand comes straight. Hold in here, breathe. And if you'd like to make this even more challenging, bend at that knee, bring that foot back towards the sit bone, reach back with your left leg, and as you pull up, look up and towards the ceiling or towards the wall in front of you, or just gaze ahead. And then exhale, release, come all the way back down. Very good, tap it out, and we're just gonna do that same thing on the other side. So, first movement, left leg steps back. When you're ready on inhale, left leg lifts up, try to keep it in line with the hips. If you're feeling like you want to challenge, right hand comes out, don't sink into that right shoulder, really try to keep it level here. If you want the variation, bend at the knee, reach back with that right hand, grab, pull up towards the ceiling, look forward. Exhale, release, come back to the ground. Very, very well done. We're going to tuck the toes here. Send our sit bones back onto the toes, give a nice stretch in the feet. The feet are a really important part of foundational yoga, especially when it comes to our standing postures. So the reason we do poses like this, or prep poses for things like dancer, is because when we're balancing, there's a lot of different little muscles at play. So the hips are obviously our stabilizers, or our weight bearers. The knees are the stabilizers. We're trying to keep everything here in stability, basically. And the feet have four corners, two at the top and two in the heel, that we really press into, really dig into to be able to give that leg the stabilization it needs. So that's why we're doing a little bit of stretching here, because otherwise you get a little crampy sometimes. So it's nice to really give a nice deep stretch to those feet prior to doing those balancing poses. So coming back onto the hands, tap them out. And from here, we'll find our first downward facing dog. So bring those hands out slightly more in front of you, tuck your back toes, lift through the hips, sending those hips all the way up towards that ceiling, gazing down between your feet. It's okay if the heels do not touch the mat yet. Breathe here. We're really pressing the chest with the hands away from the top of the mat towards the bottom of the mat, towards the feet. If you'd like to, you can hold a neutral downward facing dog, or you can start to paddle the heels out. So alternating as you breathe, lifting one heel and lowering it to the floor as you raise the other. And really digging those hands into the mat for that stabilization. Bend into the right leg, hold the left straight, one breath. Good, switch sides. Release, coming back to that downward facing dog. Left foot is going to stay on the mat. Right foot is going to kick back, flexing those toes. Look beyond the hands, in between them, and then step that foot in between the hands to come into our first runner's lunge. Now here is where you can use blocks to give yourself a little bit more lift here in your runner's lunge if you would like, not required. Do whatever feels good here. We want to make sure that the knee here has a nice bend over the ankle. We're not too forward, not too far back. We don't want to stress the knee. We're just going to hold to this position. One more big breath. Really pressing into that heel. Good. From here, we're going to, as I mentioned earlier, kind of get a ground through the four corners of the feet. So the top two, which is directly under the big toe, directly under the pinky toe, and then the heel on either side. You're going to engage your core as if someone was going to just back on a little bit of the belly. And once you're ready, you can shorten your stance if you'd like to. Take a little bend in the knee, in the left knee. Inhale, come up, high lunge. Try to check your alignment here. Make sure the pelvis is squared facing the top of the mat, and that right knee is stacked over that right ankle. Hands up. Very good. Holding here. Just breathe. If you notice you're pressing your pelvis out and away, don't do that. Pull it in. Imagine stacking everything in the spine down. So the spine, we want to be directly over and above those hips. Very good. Okay. If you need to, if you have a wall in front of you like I do, you can back up, give yourself a little bit more room, because we're going to be coming to a dive here. So with the hands up, first and foremost, we're going to reach forward, trying to make a nice, beautiful diagonal straight line, diagonal line here, gazing down towards the floor. Breathe. And when you feel ready, you're going to rock forward and lift this back left leg, flexing the toes. Arch the chest forward slightly, keeping a bend. And then from here, reach back with that left hand. I'm going to keep the right hand forward, or dancer. Try to bring that leg up as high as you can, trying to keep the hips together. If you'd like a variation to this, you can grab a block, bring your hand down to the floor or a block, and try to hold the pose still, gazing down towards your foot. Big breath here. Exhale, release the hand, release the foot, bring the left hand down to the block or mat. Left foot comes to meet it, grab each elbow on the opposite side, let the head hang, come into a forward fold here. Very, very, very good. Place the hands on the mat, step each foot back. You can jump as well if that's what you're feeling called to do. And we'll take a mini flow here. So we're going to inhale, rock the body forward, pressing into the heels, coming to our high plank. Exhale all the way down to the mat, untuck the toes, lift, cobra. Lowering back down to the mat, tucking the toes to lift into our downward facing dog, gently bringing the knees to the width of the mat or directly in line with the hips. Send those hips back, wild child's pose or regular child's pose. And now that we've done a side, you can kind of see the theme here and how it plays out in the movements. So think back to the theme, think back to how it felt to arrive to that dance. I mean, it was an unexpected unanticipated, especially the variation at the end if you gave that a try. Even if you didn't, we went somewhere that maybe we don't normally go, or maybe we have had resistance to in the past. So how did it feel to surrender to that flow, to surrender to life's dance? So think about that for just 3 more breaths until we do the next side, and then we'll see how we can reflect that on the left side of the body. So just a couple more breaths here. And I always say for child's pose as well, if you want a little bit more support in the head, I interlace my fingers and press them into my mat, and then we'll just rest my head there. Take a really big breath in, and exhale it through the mouth. Very good. Inhaling to come up. We meet back in our downward facing dog. Let's do the other side. You might notice now as well, in this second down dog that we're doing, that your heels are just a little bit closer to the ground or completely flush to the mat. This is what happens when we start warming up the body and really allowing it to get that morning stretch, that movement in, because once we sleep, I mean, the legs are so tight once we get up, we haven't stretched them yet. So this is proof of the body warming up a little bit. Right leg is going to stay on the mat. Left leg kicks back, again trying to keep that hip in alignment, locally on the fingertips or in between the hands. Inhale, step. That leg in between. Coming into a runner's lunge. If you used blocks last time, you can use blocks this time for either hand. Again, focusing on keeping that knee over that ankle, pressing into this hip. Breathe. I'm actually going to bring myself a little bit back here because I do have a wall. Once ready, engage, stretch out, and root down through the 4 corners of the left foot, root down through the back foot and the top 2 corners. Slight bend in the knee, engage that core. Inhale, lift, high lunge. Beautiful. And let's remember what we said about the pelvis, right? We don't want to be pressing the hips back towards the mat. We want it nice and stacked, everything in alignment, okay? Good. Lean forward, creating that beautiful diagonal line here. You can even straighten out that back leg. As you feel ready, lift, up, off from the mat. You have to back up a little bit more. Lifting off through the mat. Arc the chest forward towards the ground. Nice bend in that upper back. And then as you lower, 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 reach, grab right leg with right hand. Try to lift that leg up to come into dancer. Again, you want to take the variation, bring a block or your hand to the floor, ground down, keep the bend here, and lifting up just a little bit higher as you gaze down towards your foot. Exhale, bring the right hand down to the mat, and right foot with it. Very, very good. Grab each elbow with each hand. Let the head hang here. And this easy fold forward, super passive. You can even rock back and forth here. Inhale, bring the hands to the mat. Step back. Down dog once more, where we take our flow. So inhale, high plank, pressing into the heels. Exhale all the way down to the floor, untuck and lift. Lower back down, tuck the toes, lift back up, and then child's pose. And because we did so amazing, clap on the mat like this. Yay, we did it. It was a lot of work we just put in with some really challenging positions, which is the same as life, right? Life is challenging at times. But notice that it passes. We were there for a little bit, we stayed in it, but then we were out of it. Life is like a wheel, always turning, always changing circumstances, always changing external factors. So focus on how that flow state feels as we hold here for another couple breaths. From here, inhale, lift up. And you're gonna walk your hands forward, coming into a Sphinx pose here. So you're letting your feet come to the back of the mat, pressing into the tops of the heels. We are making a 90-degree angle with our arms pressed into the mat, fingers are spread nice and wide, and we're lifting up through that chest and looking forward towards the top of the mat. We're going to take a variation here. The left leg is going to come out towards the side, and you're going to keep it at a right angle, coming into this half frog Sphinx pose. Holding here 3 breaths. Very good. So for this one, we're going to roll over onto the right hip, and the right hand is going to point towards the left side of the mat. The left leg is going to step or stay directly in front of this right leg here. And once we're here, we're going to take our hand and lift up from the mat, looking over the left foot. We're going to hold here, stretching into that hip. Very good. And to come out of this, we're just going to bring that left leg over to meet the right, roll back over onto our belly, and come back into our Sphinx pose to switch sides. So now the right leg is going to come out to the right side of the mat, coming into that half frog, keeping that ankle directly in line under that knee. Good. Roll over to the left side, keep that right foot on the mat, lift up through the hands, look over to that right foot, try to keep this, or that left foot, try to keep this right leg in line again with the heel, or in line with the ankle. And then once again, let that right leg go back to the left, roll over onto our bellies, coming back into our Sphinx pose, and then rolling over onto our backs. Very good. So once we're on our backs here, the left leg or left ankle is going to come to the top of the right knee. Right foot is on the mat, and we're going to kick off with the right foot, bringing the left and right hands under that left leg to grab either the knee or directly under that thigh to pull that knee in, getting a really beautiful hip stretch in that left hip. Keeping this right leg in line with the knee, holding just a couple breaths, flexing the left toes, flexing the right toes. Keeping the engagement here. Very good. Release. Bring that knee or that ankle, slide it down so that one knee is on top of the other knee. Bring that over to the right side. Let the left hand come out to the left side. A little twist here. Good. Inhale, come up. Return back to neutral pose, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. So, right ankle comes to the left knee, kick off with the left foot, hands interlace under that right leg, keeping every leg in line with the knee, flexing the toes, holding, trying to keep our shoulders on the mat as well. Good. Slide that ankle all the way to the knee. One knee is on top of the other. Left foot comes back down to the mat. Bring it down to the left side. Right hand comes out to the right side. A little twist. Inhaling to come back up. Bring the feet to the width of the mat. Kicking off from the ground, grabbing either the soles of the feet or the ankles. You can even use a strap here if you have one. And pulling the knees towards the armpits and rolling from side to side. If that feels good to you, happy baby. Good. Come back to neutral. You can go ahead and release the feet, come into a corpse pose, letting the feet come all the way down towards the bottom of the mat. Hands are rested at the sides, fingertips and palms facing towards the ceiling. If you'd like a little bit more spinal support, you can bring each foot to the width of the mat and let the knees fall into each other here. In this Shavasana, I invite you to reflect back to your practice today. So how did it feel to move through this flow in almost a fluid-like state? How did it feel to not anticipate where we were going next? Because we knew we were doing dancer, but we didn't know what was coming in between, in the beginning, or at the end of that. So now that we have gone through a fluid-like state, even though there may have been challenges, maybe the poses were a little bit difficult, just reflecting on how it felt to just be in flow with our movements today, with our bodies. So trying to keep that same mentality with our minds, with our spiritual states, with our intellectual states. How can we take what we did today on our mats and bring it to our everyday life? Where in our lives are we moving against the current rather than with it? I will leave you with that thought as you relax the eyes, relax the mouth, open the palms again. Hands are open to receiving, so they're facing upwards towards the ceiling, and everything in the body is relaxed. We are doing a last minute scan, making sure we're not holding willingly onto any tension as we come in to that beautiful Shavasana state. I will wake you when it is time to finish class. And gently begin to blink the eyes open. Maybe you wiggle fingers and toes prior to doing that. And take a really beautiful inhalation in through the nose. And gently out through the mouth. Very good. And as you feel ready to take on the rest of your day, you can roll over onto one side and take a seat in any posture that is comfortable for you. So we will finish today's class, as we always do, inhaling, lifting hands up overhead, and imagining in between our hands as they come to close, holding everything we need for ourselves today, right in between the palms. As we exhale, we lower all of that down to the center of our hearts, where it never leaves, and we seal it as we bow forward and whisper namaste, which means it's done and can't be undone. Thank you so much for flowing and dancing with me today. It was my pleasure to do this with you, and I can't wait to see you next time.